Hello, and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast. I'm Jason Brennan. I don't have Kevin Larney with me for the intro this week. You'll hear from him shortly. Speaking of short, that's how we're going to try and keep this intro. We would just like to say a big shout out and a thank you to anyone who's been supporting us on Buy Me a Coffee. That's kind of like our equivalent of Patreon, and that's how we're funding this whole podcast thing. We've managed to use that money to pay off keeping this podcast online for the whole year, as well as breaking news. Just bought Kevin Larney a new microphone. What are you going to use that for, you might ask? Isn't the season ending next week? Unfortunately, yes, this is the penultimate episode. However, tune in next week to hear what we have in store for you for the in-between season 3 and 4, which, to be honest, probably won't be as long as usual. It's about 2 months for the most part. This time it probably won't be as long because of, the whole elephant in the room. Myself and Kevin have been held captive by an elephant for the past year, who's making us work quite frequently, but he's just upped the ante and wants us to increase productivity, so we'll probably only be about a month off in between this season. But we've got some stuff lined up for those people on Buy Me a Coffee supporting us there, and as well as maybe just the general public who can't afford it. It's the kindness of our hearts, the goodness of our hearts. What's the saying? Not fully sure, but we're going to try and keep making content during this whole thing and releasing it to all of you. So with all of that being said, you can follow us on social media at Shite Talk History. That's our Instagram. Or you can send in an email to @shitetalkhistory@gmail.com. Or you can get on to myself and Kev individually at Jason B Comedy or Kevlar Comedy. Just in terms of if you're sending in stories you'd like us to read out, if you send them to the Shite Talk account, both of us will see them, and it'll kind of mean we can never do that story because it'll lost, the element of surprise. Also, just follow our individual social media accounts so we can grow overinflated egos and tell people how popular we are. But with all of that being said, enjoy Lord Hamon Massey, and we will see you next week for the last episode of season 3. Our story today takes place on Wednesday, July 19th, 1922, at Killakee House, Rathfarnham, a giant estate on the northern parts of the Dublin Mountains, the home to 1/8th Baron Hamon Massey.
Okay, I like you started off with a certain day. It's a Wednesday.
I do that when I'm doing the research for these things, if it's already given to me. I don't go individually and Google what day of the week this was, but if it's written in the text that I'm researching, I'll then reiterate it.
You just go for it. Well, sometimes it's important. I mean, a Wednesday, that colours his mood, it sets the scene.
Well, no, I think
you famously read a menu for half an hour in order to set a scene. Maybe the day could be also relevant.
No, but I had more of an interest in Roberta's takeaway and diner. This is a world famous takeaway and diner.
Okay.
The estate owned by Anglo-Irish gentry family, the Masseys. Now, do you think that's a good or bad type of gentry?
What, the Irish gentry?
Yeah, Anglo-Irish gentry.
I think that's the only gentry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, the English gentry could just be are also a bad type of gentry. I've let the cat out of the bag. I said also.
I think, the Anglo-Irish gentry, I think that's it. I don't think anyone was purely Anglo. I think by the time if they were over here, they were Anglo-Irish.
No, I just meant that I imagine England had their own set of gentry, so they wouldn't have been...
yeah.
Yeah, and they would have been worse.
All gentry's the same, man.
So in 1649, Hugh Massey moved to Ireland to avail of the vast amount of land offered to him by joining the Cromwellian forces in Éire.
Oh, yeah.
His great-grandson, also Hugh Massey, became a Baron of Duntralige, I don't know, but he became the Baron of that place, the first of them, in 1776, and over the generations the family acquired more and more land, holding large chunks in Leitrim, Tipperary and Limerick. Hugh Massey then in 1826. Sorry, I should say that they're all called Hugh.
They're all called Hugh.
Like almost so many of the people in this story, in this intro, are going to be called Hugh. Just roll with it. Don't question me.
I'm not gonna. I don't question it at all. I think there's nothing more normal than naming a child after yourself.
Well, like we're talking, you'll see. But it does make it very awkward and really annoying to research this stuff.
Sure,
and there's 8 generations and everyone's called the same, but then they also have 6 different middle names. Just give everyone the same middle name throughout the generations. That's a simpler thing, and it probably causes less arguments within marriage as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why would it be an argument within marriage?
Because you really want 8 people called Hugh in a row. Eventually, someone's going to marry into this lineage and then go, I hate the word Hugh. That's the name of my first ex.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I thought you would more be some sort of scenario where one of them would accidentally marry their father due to some legal loophole.
No.
I've married the wrong Hugh. That would probably annoy me more than the name Hugh.
To think that you get away with that, you'd have a certain amount of hubris.
Well, there's an awful lot of hubris going into naming everybody that you know Hugh.
Maybe you're just better with faces.
Maybe. Did any of them try and get funky and change the spelling of it to HEW?
Doesn't look like it. But again, they have a bunch of middle names and stuff. And also they go through the generations as barons. That makes it a lot easier. So Hugh, he married the daughter of Luke White, another rich man from a rich family. And they moved into Killakee House, which would eventually be passed down through the generations. By the time the house reached Baron 7th and 8th, Hamon's da and then himself, the family had fallen on hard times. The 6th Baron...
No.
I know, isn't it? It's hard. It's tough to see the gentry fall on hard times.
It is. I mean, there was a man who lifted himself up by his bootstraps by helping Cromwell try and subjugate the Irish. And here we are, 150 years later, it all slipped away.
You can never trust the next generation. They're going to throw away the good work of their grandparents and great grandparents. Shocking to see.
Time is a harsh mistress.
The 6th Baron, Hamon's granddad, John Thomas. So that's a different name. Thankfully, had squandered a heap of.
That's probably where they went wrong.
Could be. I mean, he did squander all the money. Now, he was said he liked to party, liked to have a few motorised cars, which at the time, that is a lot of money. Got a good few estates as well. A lot of estates around the place.
Like a Ford estate?
Well, possibly. But I imagine, I suppose both kind of estates. Yeah, the car and the vast amounts of land. But so asset rich, but liquid cash poor. They had 2 giant estates in Hermitage and Killakee that they basically let run down because they couldn't afford the upkeep.
Okay, yeah.
Well, isn't that, what's that in, they mention that in Darby O'Gill and the Little People, don't they? They're talking about wishes of what you'd want, like from a leprechaun or a fairy or a genie. He said, a big massive house. And then he says, sure, that'd be a stupid idea. You don't have the money for a house. The upkeep, the cost of keeping that, it's like keeping a taxi on the road in Dublin in 2020.
I'm led to believe extremely expensive. I didn't realise there'd be so much good financial advice to come out of Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Yeah, because if you've got a big house and you can't afford the upkeep, just sell it. And
property tax and all. Yeah, but then you might as well just ask for a load of money.
Yeah.
Growing up, Hamon was in the lap of luxury. So he expected this to continue, and as he would grow older, he would assume that he would become the heir to the family fortune and all of the estates. Unfortunately, he was prone to bouts of ill health, so he didn't join the military like most of his family, including his younger brother, Francis, which meant that he didn't have that, grand status as a military man from the gentry. Because isn't that basically what everyone does? You're either a king or a nobleman, or else you go to the military and tell a load of poor people to die.
Yeah, pretty much. You don't enlist as a private. I'm pretty sure you just get immediately put into lieutenant or above. And
then you marry Meghan Markle.
That's everyone's trajectory.
But Hamon did get a college education, a university education. So there is that. Now, he grew up...
That's not worth the paper it's goddamn scrawled on.
The scrolls that it's scrawled on.
Ink, quill and parchment, I assume, as it's done at the time. But Hamon's the oldest, is he?
Yeah.
Imagine that you get sat down and you're like, oh, sorry, little hammy. You don't get to go off and fight in a glorious war for king and country. You don't get to do your part for Blighty. But you do get to go to read some books like a fucking nerd.
Yeah, no, that's fair, because again, you're not going to see action. I would take the army. No, I wouldn't. I would take the books. I like reading. Not that you tell listening to this podcast.
I was pretty sure you were illiterate.
Yeah, my reading levels are sick.
I got mad word skills.
Ill. Get it? Ill. Literate.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, so Hamon would, though, take over residency at Killakee House and kept the one remaining motor car his granddad had. He was also a sharp dresser, so he didn't lick it off a stone. Got it from his granddad.
Didn't pick it up off the ground?
No. And a social butterfly, often attending soirees and parties, events and other words for parties.
Box socials.
Galas.
Mm-hmm.
And spars.
He didn't discriminate when it came to corner shops.
So what do you think happens next? Remember, now, granted, he's Irish and he's young and he goes to a lot of parties.
The local priest comes over, knocks on his door, and then smacks him with a crucifix and tells him to knock it off.
No, he becomes an alcoholic.
Oh, no. I thought that was just, like, part of the deal. I didn't think that was noteworthy. You may as well say he also started breathing oxygen.
Well, no, see, what do you think the excuse is?
I don't even think he needs an excuse.
Oh, everyone needs an excuse. Especially when you become an alcoholic at a young age. It has to be something else.
What was it? I'd say that he was getting bored of beating his wife and he thought drinking might spice it up a bit.
No, there's references to a butler that was said to be giving him drinks at a very young age.
Oh.
So it started that way. And then through, which is odd now for a butler.
That is odd for a butler. Was the butler drinking with him? Or was he just slipping in brandies? Or was he like...
I don't know, but if he's a kid and you're giving him the alcohol, back then, usually, isn't it like a live-in butler and they're at kind of like the whim of the house? He wouldn't jeopardize his job to give a load of whiskey to his young master.
Yeah, but maybe he was an alcoholic. It seemed, you know, when you're like a teenager and then someone in their late 20s is like hanging around with your group and buying everyone drink and you're like, this is literally the biggest legend that's ever walked the planet. Like, there's no one cooler than this guy. And then when you get to your late 20s, you're like, that person had a problem. So the butler was probably just like, no one else wanted to hang out with him. So he just turned to Hammond and turned Hammond into his drinking buddy.
Okay. Or I wonder if it's the butler. It could have been when he was in his old house, or now that he's up in Killakee, he might have had a butler up there, even though the family couldn't afford it. Young people just won't clean up after themselves, Kevin. But it could have been up there when he was could have been when he was like 18, and then he was a bad influence. Kind of like, come on, let's go out to all these parties, all these. There's no, I don't know what they're doing at parties back then. Probably not cocaine.
No, probably just going to a barn and drinking straight ethanol. Are you sure it wasn't just a man called Butler who hopped in through his window every once in a while and gave him a sniff to a reporter?
William Butler.
Yeah, exactly.
By his mid-20s, he's been hospitalised because of the drinking at Mercer's Hospital, Dublin, and that's where he meets Margaret Moran.
Okay.
She's a widower of a doctor. She has 3 kids, and they strike up a bit of a friendship. That turned to romance, as it so often does, and Hamon informed the family of his intentions to marry her.
Okay, all right. His own family or her family?
His family. Her family would be, they probably wouldn't care now. They sold her off with the dowry, and then the fella died, so she's on her own.
Fair enough. And what age is she?
I think she's only a year older than him, a year or two, but it's very close in age. But she is a tiny bit older.
I suppose having 3 kids by your mid-20s, that's good going. But also being hospitalised from drinking in your mid-20s, that's also going. Pretty good going. So they're both ahead of the game.
But I suppose back then though, they might both be behind the game.
They might be. That's probably par for the course.
I don't think she might be par for the course, but he might be well behind the game. Wait until your mid-20s to be hospitalised by the drink in Ireland.
Yeah.
What? Do you have a stomach made of stone? But so This would have been a bit of a blow to the Masseys, as they had already sold their tenanted land holdings, so they had no more rent coming in. Still had a giant debt, and that debt was continuously rising. They were a Protestant gentry during the time of a more effective rebellion. The heir to the throne had a giant drink problem by his mid-20s, and to top it all off, he wants to marry a Catholic.
Oh, whoa, you left out that crucial bit of information.
I assumed you'd guess by Margaret Moran.
Sure, yeah, and the 3 children.
Yeah.
But, so I assume her doctor husband died.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's usually what the term widower would mean.
Yep, fair enough.
I know it's Ireland at the time, so any kids they'd have would probably have to be, you'd be under fierce pressure to put the Catholic on them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And actually, Margaret was a fairly devout Catholic, so it was a pretty tense time for the Masseys, seeing as do you know what the 3 pillars of Protestant ascendancy are?
3 pillars. Land.
Yes.
Wealth.
No.
Oh, that's too vague, I suppose. Land, exploitation of the masses, and contraceptives.
Allegiance to the crown.
Yeah.
And being a Protestant.
Well, but one of the pillars of Protestancy can't be being a Protestant, although I suppose it's the main pillar.
I don't know, yeah, it feels like where I read that, I thought the same thing, but I left it in there anyway, because, like with comedy, Kevin, the rule of 3, people like lists of 3.
The key to being a good Protestant is being a Protestant.
The couple married regardless, having the wedding in January 1919 in University Church, Stephen's Green, that'd be in Dublin, Kevin.
Oh, in University Church?
No, Stephen's Green.
Wait, sorry, they had to have it outside in Stephen's Green, I imagine. If a Catholic and a Protestant tried to get married in the house of God,
people wouldn't have been happy.
I'd say a crack would have went down the floor, right down the middle of the church, and maybe separated the 2 of them.
It might have been like a non-denominational church.
It might have been. Get your head in the game, Jason. In 1919, there's only one denomination.
Which was?
Church of Ireland.
Well, no, Kevin, none of that would happen, because Massey, it appears, converts to Catholicism for his new wife.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then they take up residence in Killakee House again. Only a few months after, the Masseys were then forced to auction off their family heirlooms and anything worth some cash to service the mounting debts. But it was Ireland in 1919, so it was fair to say it was a buyer's market.
Yeah, sure.
All of this was a bit too much to take for Baron number 7, so he turned to the drink hard, much like his son. And he left his wife, Lady Massey, in charge of family affairs. But the bad luck wasn't set to end just yet. The Hermitage Mansion, which was their other house, their other estate house.
I mean, I know you're saying it's bad luck, but also in the same breath you're saying their other mansion house. I feel like, sure, we're seeing the decline of this family, but also, who gives a fuck?
They've got no liquid assets, Kev. No liquid assets.
But like you keep saying the mountain debts and they're selling the heirlooms, and then they turn around to their other mansion. Just sell the fucking house.
Yeah, fair. I think you might have a different opinion soon.
Okay.
We just said it's a buyer's market. They don't want to sell their house now because it's not going to be worth as much. You're talking about an estate that's kind of been... This is a big thing to be passed through generations. You don't sell it for short-term cash. You hold out a couple of decades and then get your fair value.
2002 to 2006 is just around the corner.
And in the meantime, you Airbnb it and don't pay tax on it for years and years.
Just tell everyone who shows up to tell the neighbours you're their cousin.
But, the Hermitage Mansion was burnt down in February 1920, despite it having been gutted long before and left vacant since Baron VI died in 1915. Between 1920 and 1922, 98 estates and mansions were burnt down by the Republicans. They don't show that in the Michael Collins movie or the Wind That Shakes the Barley, do they? Just lads going around setting estates on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard of that before, but I guess that seems within their wheelhouse.
Oh.
So this is obviously right at the height of the War of Independence. Then
it would, yeah. So the IRA's idea of the Anglo-Irish gentry wouldn't be the greatest.
Burning mansions down. Yeah, fair enough.
Now, Lady Massey taken over charge of the family from her husband, who's gone on to the drink. She's not having none of this. On October 6th, 1920, she demands compensation from local county councils for the damage.
On what grounds?
I'm saying you shouldn't be letting people come burn my mansion down.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, were the councils in charge of the police force and such?
I don't know if that falls under the remit, though. Like, my house got burnt down, pay me money.
I guess it doesn't really matter because she asked for £70,000. That was reduced to £28,500.
Okay.
Along with just over £600 in legal fees. But it didn't matter. The money never appeared because Sinn Féin had a majority of members in the councils where she applied to, and they basically told her to feck off.
Well, what relation would Sinn Féin have to do with the burning of gentry mansions?
I never said that, Kevin. You're joining two completely separate sentences together. I have no idea what you're talking about. I have never seen those sentences before in my life. She then tried to apply for £9,100 owed to the family by Limerick Railway in 1921, and while again that was granted, the family didn't receive that money either because the newly formed Free State refused to recognise anything that was awarded before the treaty was signed.
Handy, very convenient. Is it the end of the bad luck? That's it. Things are looking up for the Massey family now.
No, yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. Unless you'd count that at the same time as this, the Lady Massey's family, the Wises, or her maiden name, had their Rochestown house burnt down as well.
I haven't ever heard it. So I guess everyone who just lived in a mansion is now investing in fire insurance.
Pretty much, yeah. For her brother Frank, who was the head of that family, he took his own life shortly afterwards. But just a couple of months after that, there was another Massey in the world. Hugh Hamon John Somerset Massey.
Great name.
And see, that's the problem. They all have names like that. That's one of the shorter ones. It's like I'm looking at Brazilian footballers. I'm just gonna. That's why it's easier to just give them one name, like Ronaldinho or Hamon.
So what name are you going for this guy? Somerset?
This is Hamon, and he was the next part of the bad luck for them. This baby. I don't think so, but they would have viewed it that way. I think babies are all cool and stuff, but they wouldn't have liked that because
it's the worst luck of all.
It was the spawn of a Catholic marriage.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you'd expect out of a Catholic marriage is a baby. That must have been a real shock for them.
I don't know. They don't know our ways, Kevin.
Yeah, they couldn't separate the fact from the fiction.
They might not know if we were even able to get pregnant.
No, they probably assumed we just stole babies.
Or we jumped up out of the ground like dwarves from Middle Earth.
Yeah.
To be fair, we look a bit like them.
Yeah, I could see that. Only our women, though.
But, so to recap, they've sold their tenanted lands too early. Didn't make enough money for them. Sold their valuable heirlooms at a time the market was screwed.
Missed the bubble.
Had the Hermitage mansion burnt down and weren't compensated in any way because it happened a few months before Ireland got its freedom. Father's an alcoholic, son an alcoholic who married a Catholic, had a kid with her. So that's just the backstory now. Feel like you're caught up?
Yeah, that's it. I'm ready to roll.
Okay.
I'm ready for you to turn it all around for me, Gist. I'm ready for the Hamon comeback story. Just like Richard Hamon. This is him post-crash. Let's see what Hamon can do.
So our story picks back up where we left it off, which is, I suppose, the first paragraph where I started talking. Sorry, that was a big divergence, but I wanted to give you some backstory.
Yeah.
The date is July 19th, 1922.
Famously a Wednesday on the Gregorian calendar.
Of course, historically. A day after the telephone wires to Killakee House were cut.
Oh, okay. That's pretty spooky.
They also had their car stolen. Strange for it all to happen in one day, though some of these events may have been muddled together over time. Like, history accounts aren't great. I'm going to say that if it didn't happen that day beforehand, it was probably in that week or just beforehand. Well, also, they had another mansion burnt down and lots of stuff was happening, so it's not uncommon.
Yeah, but it's also not strange this seems like what happens in the minutes leading up to the climactic scene in a horror film. It's not that strange if someone's doing it on purpose. Get the car out of the way, cut the phone lines. Now the platform has been set for shit to go down.
Well, it's hard to know. I'll let you judge from the next couple of minutes what you think happened.
Also, like, how would they even have noticed the phone line had gone down?
They were probably trying to call number 4.
Yeah. I'm getting a weird buzz out of it. Try 3 again.
No, John's not picking up.
Their mansion's probably burnt down. Try 9.
No, you can't try 9 because of the time zone difference to Australia. They'll be sleeping. Now, did I mention before that Massey had himself described the estate as a lonely place, seeing as it was up in the mountains and about 4 miles from the nearest tram stop?
No, although, to be honest, that doesn't sound that bad nowadays. If you're only 4 miles away from the nearest Lewis stop, you're ka-ching!
Oh, sticking it to the Irish government, Kev.
Yeah.
Some social commentary, political commentary.
For anyone outside of Ireland, Lewis is the Irish for speed.
Which is ironic because the actual reputation of the tram system in Ireland is far from that.
Well, no, it's very well known for being a place where you can buy and sell speed.
So, according to Massey, he and his wife were in the bedroom, getting ready.
Yeah, according to Massey, I'm sure he said that a lot.
So I was in the bedroom, right, and I got her socks off. I could see her ankles. It's on. I don't know what was sexy back then, or what people would brag about, but I imagine something along those lines. But I shouldn't really joke considering what's about to happen next.
Oh.
Because while they're getting ready for the labba, turned in for the night, hitting the hay, having sex, Margaret...
None of those previous 3 were euphemisms for having sex, but go on.
Wait, so every time someone said, I'm hitting the hay, they were just going to bed?
I was just going back and punching a bale of hay.
But anyway, Margaret, probably, they're lying on the bed underneath a white sheet with a hole cut out of it in the middle of it, getting Hamon all hot and bothered.
Yeah.
I don't know how Protestants have sex.
Well, they're Catholics now, you know. He has to leave his old way behind.
I imagine he would have brought across his sexual proclivities with him.
I'd say she would have turned him. He's into that Catholic sex now, you know.
Just straight up missionary work.
Bollock naked, pair of socks on, a pint of Beamish in one hand, a low self-esteem in the other, and a half-hard penis. And away you go.
Off you go on your missionary work.
Off you go on your missionary work. You light the picture of the Holy Cross in the corner, you do 2 decades of the rosary together, and then boom. Rosary beads to anal beads. The quick switcheroo. You're in.
And then you're out, and then you're in, and then you're out.
And then you better go back in again. Because the big man does not like when you leave it out.
I don't know where we've gone with that.
Who knows?
All of a sudden, Massey hears footsteps. They're pretty clear because they were coming from someone walking on the gravel outside. He yells out, "Hello, who's there?"
Classic.
A man answered, one Anthony Harmon of Piperstown, Tala. Guess what side of the rebellion he'd have been on, Kev?
I feel like you're leading up to that he's on the Free State side, but he's...
I'm not leading up to anything.
Maybe he's just there. Maybe he's Piper's Town. Maybe he's just there to sell some pipes.
Maybe.
Maybe he's a flute man.
It was actually reported that he was a traveller, but at this time, that wasn't a member of the travelling community. That could have possibly been a travelling salesman or something along those lines.
Okay. He's just your average nighttime door-to-door pipe salesman.
The Pied Piper of Tala.
We got all your pipes. Smoking pipes, tin whistles, plumbing pipes. We got it all.
He gets back to him anyway, yelling out that he wants to talk to Massey, who duly walks downstairs holding a little lamp to light the way. This is where it starts to get a bit iffy, because nobody...
This is not where it starts to get a bit iffy. It started to get a bit iffy when the car disappeared. It was even more iffy when the phone stopped working.
This is where I think it starts to get iffy, because all of that seems normal to me. I'm held up for this corona thing in my office on my own, in the place I work, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And every time I hear like a footstep on the stairs at like nighttime, which is just me walking up them because no one else is here, I freak myself out.
Every time you hear the sound of steps on the stairs, you freak out because you live in a bungalow.
But I think I'd probably be terrible in a horror movie then. I do like watching horror movies, but I feel like, if I think that this is the part where it gets iffy, this is like shutting the gate to the barn when the horse is already out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, at this point during the horror movie, you've already, like, your gang of sexy teens is pissed on an Indian burial ground. You've gone to a haunted lake on Friday the 13th. You've desecrated various religious and holy sites. There's a man running at you with a chainsaw, and you're like, I don't know. I've got to. There's something off about this.
And I'm about to go skinny dipping, going, come on, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. You just spray painted "Live Forever" with a 4 on the side of your dad's Camaro.
And told my high school sweetheart that it's gonna that we're gonna settle down and get a white picket fence in a house.
Yeah, you're already dead. You'd be dead in this film.
Yeah, I don't have a chance in this. But
no. So some random man has come, shouted up through a window. You're now going to the door, armed with a lamp.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly what's after happening.
But not like a lamp from Cluedo. More like, I'm imagining the like Rip Van Winkle lamp. Like, it's basically a ball of wax.
This is possibly. Well, isn't the one in Cluedo or Clue, I should say, because I'm in America. I'll make some local references. That's the difference of that board game.
Yeah, we'll release 2 versions of this episode.
Yeah, and it was kind of like how they have Monopoly over in Ireland, but over here they just call it their government. Oh, political commentary number 2, straight back at you, Kev. Now,
in the Irish Monopoly, whenever you try and build a house, they say, "Go fuck yourself," and put 2 hotels there instead.
But now, in Massey's account of it, he says Hamon was demanding £5 from himself in a blatant bout of extortion or robbery, whatever you call it. But Massey obliges, but it wasn't enough for Hamon. He barges his way into the study where Massey kept his safe, and a loud verbal altercation ensues, causing Lady Massey to come downstairs and ask him to please not wake up the baby.
Sure, okay.
Seems fair. That's all she cares about at the minute.
Well, the baby's just been put down, Jason. I mean, there's no reason why a robbery can't be silent, you know?
A great mother, has to be said.
Fair dues.
But Hamon didn't give a shite about the child. Not at all. Willing to disrupt their regular sleep schedule. Didn't care.
He sounds like a bit of a bad egg, Jason.
Doesn't sound like a great man now. The worst of the IRA's atrocities during the time. Ruining children's sleep.
Waking this childer.
But because of this, him not leaving, Massey decides to run over to a chest of drawers, pull out a revolver, says he shoots a bullet over his head as a warning, and then, again, I guess he didn't give a shite about waking up the baby either. I can imagine that.
Maybe he put a silencer on it, Jason, you know?
She comes running down the stairs going, "For the love of God, will the 2 of you just think of the baby? You intruder, I have a child upstairs trying to sleep. He's been up all day playing with Lego. He's all excited. We need to just put him down." And then your husband goes and takes out a gun and starts shooting the ceiling with it. It's like, you're not helping. Do you remember what I was just saying? You've made it worse. But such is marriage, Kevin. These are things people have to learn and go through. Like, you're not going to learn that. Baby books aren't going to tell you this. There's certain things you're just going to have to figure out through life experience.
When your wife says, "It's been a long day and I've just put the babies down, could we please keep the noise to a minimum?" Do you A, take out a revolver and start blasting? B, open the door to strange men in the middle of the goddamn night? C, just go to sleep? Women, they're a mystery.
And to be fair, he should have known, because don't they always say you're meant to sleep at the same time as the baby? So,
there you go.
Amateur hour.
So he's gone through the candlestick. He's got the revolver. I can't wait to see how you work the rope, the wrench, and the lead pipe into this. Oh, the guy was from Piperstown.
Ah, yes. Well done. Yeah. And the skirmish ensued within the study.
Oh my God. Is this story the origins of the game Clue?
But, so in the study, when they're having a tug of war with each other, Hamon grabs at Massey, leaps at him. I should clarify, Harmon is Anthony Harmon, the IRA member. Massey is Harmon Massey, son of all the Hugh Massey lineage thing. A lot of similar names in this story. Apologies. So when Harmon jumps at Massey, leaps at him, Massey unloads a bullet right in his head, killing him stone dead.
Okay.
So now he feels awful guilty about it and calls for a doctor and calls for a priest while his wife prayed over the dead body in the study by the light of a single lamp.
Well, now the phone lines are cut, Jason, so by calls for a priest, you just mean he literally called out a window.
And they're also like ages away from a lot of people, seemingly. Well, from the tram line, there could be local other houses and stuff around. I don't know. It does seem odd because alternatively, policeman James Hughes and another officer named Lynch went to investigate the reports of a shooting in Rathfarnham. Harmon's body lay in the big house for over a day, so I have a feeling he didn't call the doctor or a priest because, the phone lines would have been cut and they're in the middle of nowhere. And then the police examined the body and found 2 bullets, one in the head and one in the side of the torso, not just a single bullet in the head like he'd said. And
sure.
The body was found 3 yards from the safe, which was said to be full of a considerable amount of cash, which again is odd for a destitute family, and convenient placing of the body.
That it's right beside the safe.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like you're leading me, the witness here. He's fighting him. Yeah, but I thought
he's not going to be looking. He's not going to be going towards the safe while he's fighting it. It's not like if he reaches it, like capture the flag. Like, oh, if I get this, I win it. It's like, no, you've got to fight him and kill him, and then you can have the body.
Okay.
But the investigation into the death was carried out by a man named Joe Kinsella. He worked for the CID, which was the armed detective unit of the Free State, mainly comprising of former IRA members. Kinsella did indeed find a £5 note on Harmon's body, along with a master key, or a skeleton key, if you will, Kevin.
Okay.
Now, that also seems a bit... I suppose if he says he wanted £5, there you go. He offered him £5, they found £5.
Yeah, but this is according to his story. It's pretty easy to, fill in those blanks after the fact. And what about this key that's made out of a skeleton?
Yeah, but I mean... Nothing he said is true so far, or have been corroborated, so why would you have a problem with this £5 note story, Kevin?
Yeah, it also points out that if he had a day's time to prep, why didn't he figure a better story for the bullets? Did he not think that they would notice 2 bullet holes? I suppose they didn't have CSI back then. They didn't know about how forensic worked. I thought they'd just get away with it.
Well, we'll actually get into that in a second, Kevin, so good spot. Now, the inquest for the murder came to a conclusion, with the outcome being delivered by a jury.
Okay.
And that jury found the death was caused by a bullet wound fired by Massey.
Right.
But on accident. So he was acquitted.
Okay.
And this didn't go down too well, seeing as a member of one of the gentry and a former powerhouse Protestant family, which staunchly opposed Home Rule and in general hated Catholics, appeared to be getting away with the murder of a Catholic and a rebel.
Sure, but
yeah, I know
they're also Catholic then.
Yeah, but quick to forget. I don't think people were.
Sure, okay, still from a family of Protestants. All right.
Now, there were a number of inconsistencies with Massey's story. So much so that one man felt the need to have it all looked into himself. On July 21st, 1922, Big Mick Collins, the then Commander-in-Chief... Oh, I know, it got interesting.
It's the return of Detective Mick.
It's been pretty interesting already.
It has been pretty interesting, but I'm very excited to see how Detective Mick is going to come into this. So at this point, Mick is obviously still alive, although to be honest, it would be even more amazing if he was dead.
No, he's the Commander-in-Chief of the Free State, and he's the de facto president. So he writes to Liam Tobin, his Director of Intelligence. Collins told him that he wanted Tobin to make a personal inquiry into the case and bring him back a report.
Okay.
A week later, he reminded him of the need for a report yet again. Now, the case was due to be heard on July 29th in court, but the Minister for Home Affairs, Eamon Duggan, told the Irish Republican Police to drop the case, which seems a bit odd.
What?
Just let it go. Don't bother looking into that. That's fine.
So, but this is also in July, so this is several months after the case.
This is a week. This is 8 days after, because it was July 21st when Collins asked for the report, the first time for the report.
Oh, sorry, okay.
And then by the 29th, it was due in court, And but they were told then it was, you could just drop it, lads, leave it, as they're getting ready to go into the court, probably the next day or could be that day. But
Okay.
now Massey said that the gun went off accidentally when Hamon lunged at him and his wife.
Sure.
But Hamon was obviously shot twice, and there was proof of another attempted shot when Massey handed over the weapon. So he definitely tried at least 3 times to shoot the thing, not the once.
What's proof of another shot? Did he hand over the 6-bullet revolver and there was 3 gone? And they said, aha, we got you, Massey.
Yes. And in fairness, he probably
They
wasn't...
had their best scientists working on it. They had a big 6 and a big 3 up on a board with a minus sign in between. They worked all weekend. But they got their man.
And also the fact that he didn't call the police would have been a bit of a giveaway, the fact that he might have been guilty, because he called the doctor for a dead man, which famously they can't really do much in terms of that.
No.
He also called a priest for a dead man, which also, I don't think he can read the rights to someone who's already dead.
No.
But he decided not to inform the authorities, which actually could do something.
Yeah.
Now, the police at the time said that the married couple were in clear distress when they met them, so it's possible they were in shock and just misremembering things, which is fair, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, they were under a fair bit of pressure because Massey just unlawfully killed a man and then forged a crime scene.
Exactly. That'd put pressure on any marriage, you know.
But
it's easy to poke fun, Jason, until you're in the situation, you know. Don't go crying whenever you shot someone on your floor.
The Free State were meant to be protecting the gentry at the time and anyone else who the irregular IRA would have targeted. So the British had given them the guns and ammunition to do so they were kind of expected to do it. There were 6,000 British troops still in Dublin at the time, and obviously the British had some level of control or influence still in Ireland. They didn't just hand us the keys, so we'd have to at least appease them to a certain amount.
Okay.
Around the same time, there were 2 sons of a Dublin unionist, Sir William Taylor, who were former Black and Tans and had been caught with revolvers and were thought to have committed a number of armed robberies in Dublin since the dirty Black and Tans ceased their atrocities.
2 good men out of a job.
Well, good men, 2 men out of a job. Now,
Sure.
Collins wrote to Liam Tobin for this case as well, saying that he had assurances from the pair's da, along with the Lord Mayor of Dublin, that if they put them on a boat and shipped them back over to England, they'd never again return to Ireland, so the CID let them go.
Okay. Right.
This could have also been a factor in Massey getting away with the murder, and despite the irregular IRA being pretty sore about the whole thing, even going to the lengths of holding a meeting in Rathfarnham to discuss the murder some weeks after. However, no retaliation came from the boys, despite them destroying loads of houses of the Unionists, pro-treatyites and imperialists. Didn't really matter though, because bad times continued for the Masseys, with Hamon... yeah. We're not done yet.
I mean, they couldn't take out any retribution to them. It did seem like they already lost everything. They lost their house. Unless they've got another mansion that you haven't mentioned yet.
No, this story is like... it's like, I don't know, like a Kafka or some Eastern European or Russian novelist. It's like you just have to tear this character down 100%. Everything has to go wrong before we can start to actually talk about the story or build anything up.
Sure, it's like an episode of Peep Show. I think that's the modern version.
But bad times were going to continue anyway, because Hamon's ma died in January of 1923. Now, her will promised money to all immediate family members, apart from Hamon, who was excluded.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Your own mother. But in fairness...
Just because you're an alcoholic, you turned your dad to drink, and you married a Catholic.
I'd say it's mainly the latter.
Probably the latter, yeah.
But none of that mattered, because all of the money being left to the family was dependent on them being reimbursed for the Hermitage mansion being burnt down, which, again, never came to pass. So it's really more of just like a stab in the heart for no reason.
Sure, yeah, so there was nothing to give, but she left them off the list anyway.
Yeah. Then by March of the next year, 1924, Massey himself had to declare bankruptcy and was evicted from Killakee House by the bailiffs. Now, the house went up for auction to cover the debts owed by the family to the banks, but nobody wanted to buy a giant estate mansion that needed quite a bit of repair and upkeep.
I'd also, you may as well buy a house that's on a bunch of kindling with a sign on the side saying "Strike Match Here." I mean, you're not going to want to buy a mansion house in this climate.
This would be the good climate to buy it in, though. It's a buyer's market. Again, everything's gone tits up.
Yeah, it's a fire sale.
But you couldn't be burning this house down because Massey was too ill to be moved at this stage, or so he claimed. And he'd been granted an extension to stay in the house while recovering. But by May, an under-sheriff turned up with 2 assistants to a victim. I do like saying under-sheriff.
Yeah. I'm sure the sheriff made him know he was under-sheriff every day. Evicting Massey from his mansion. I don't know if that sounds like sheriff work. Sounds more like something the under-sheriff might handle.
The sheriff, the co-sheriff, and the under-co-sheriff.
Yeah.
That's not fair. Can I just have to be the co-sheriff? No, you're the under-co-sheriff.
The co-sheriff is the dog.
You're under to the co-sheriff.
Yeah.
But he turns up with these 2 assistants to a victim. They have to send for a doctor to make sure that Massey is actually sick enough to stay. But he declares that Massey's fit enough to be moved. So all the boys, they just basically tell him nicely that, here, Hamon, for your own sake and for your reputation, we won't make this ugly. If you just want to get up and leave the house now, that will all just be cool. Which is what they should have said, but they didn't. Instead, they asked him would he leave, and he wouldn't. So they picked him up from his mattress. And they didn't pick him up. They picked up the mattress and then walked it all the way down onto the road and fecked it down there in front of all the neighbours and underlings that lived in the local town.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it said that he remained on the mattress on the side of the road for numerous hours while his wife consoled him. And then eventually the crowd kind of just got sick of looking at him and just dispersed.
I wonder how many times someone shouted, "You've made your bed, now you've got to lie in it." And then that probably went over well once, and then they'd leave, and then someone else late to the show would come down and go, "Oh my god, I got a great line. You've made your bed, Massey, now you gotta..." And just get nothing the second time. Crickets. That's the person I feel sorry for.
Do you think Massey laughed at the first time someone said that?
I'd say the first time he was like, fair dues, fair cop.
Yeah, fair enough. He probably,
And then the third guy comes down and tries it, and they're like, done, mate, done. Already been tapped.
Heard it all before, man. Heard it all before.
Yeah, water off a duck's back. What else you got?
Now,
looks like this situation's made strange bedfellows of us all. Oh, he's back again. Second guy's raging. He had nothing.
Now, initially... So initially Margaret had been taken in by a local steward of the area, but the steward refused the house to Massey, so he had to stay elsewhere until they agreed with the bank to be allowed to stay in the little gatehouse right beside it. So it was a fair, just down at the bottom of the lane, little place for like the servants, small little 3-bedroom kind of cottage. They asked, right, you can have the house, we've given you that, but you haven't sold it yet and you're waiting to sell it. Can we stay in this little thing, this shack? And that's exactly what they did.
Okay.
It was a rough enough time, but made easier by the fact that Margaret could send her 3 children back to her family to be raised in Meath, so she didn't get to see them much now. For Massey's sake. They kept the baby.
I was going to say what happened to the 4th child, yeah.
No, they kept Massey's kid. It was just all of her kids they'd sent away.
Sure.
Now, Massey had no skills or experience of anything.
Do you reckon they tried to get away with swapping one of them? Because, I mean, you wouldn't want the baby of all of them in the small shack. Do you reckon they tried to just pretend the baby was one of the grown children and then just keep the grown child?
I'd say no. The years would be too far different.
He's 10. He's small for his age, but he'll grow.
Well, actually, hold on. Let me just double check here. What year is this? By March 24. What year did he meet her? No, because they got married in 1919, and this is at least 1924, and she already had the kids, so they'd all be well grown by now. You couldn't be swapping out a 5-year-old for a toddler.
People from Meath are thick, they wouldn't know the difference. A child's a child.
You're going to lose all of our Meath listenership.
Listen, if you take your Westmeath listenerships on the way out, don't give a shit. Take those boys with you.
Now, Massey at the time had no skills or experience, because all he ever did was drink and do. He went to college but didn't really do much with it. Never went to the military either, so he had nothing.
Sure.
Now he now lived in a Catholic country that didn't really care about his title or his family's past. Actually, kind of hated that fact. He was a well-known alcoholic and never got over the fall of his family's status. So he never really found work. Instead, he'd spend the next 34 years of his life pottering about the Killakee estate, picking up wood for the fire and doing odds and ends, while Margaret went out and got a job to support the family and become the breadwinner. And she acquired a clerical position in the Irish Hospital Sweepstakes, which was a lottery system that ran for 4 years, with the profits all going towards building the upkeep of hospitals around the country.
Wait, that's amazing. They ran a lotto to build hospitals.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing either, and then it made sense to me. It was like, that's of course why Ireland has such a long and storied history with the raffle and lottery system.
Yeah,
people love it.
That's fantastic. Maybe that's what we're missing from our current health service. That's where the funding needs to come from. Just do a raffle.
Well, if instead of upping taxes, just say that, right, people, everybody's got to give an extra £1,000 a year, but 1% of the population will get back 50 grand every year.
Yeah. I'd be on board.
Yeah, and then you always owe someone who's winning money, and you're like, it's just like Winning Streak, but I don't have to watch it. When was the last time you watched Winning Streak?
I don't know. Probably when I'm with my grandparents.
What would your mascot be if you went on?
No, I wouldn't be allowed on. If I was in the winning streak, it'd be one of those situations where to be a zoom in shot of me looking bitter in the sands, and then my son would have taken the spinning spot.
But you don't have a son. He's
too old now, Marty. He can't spin the wheel himself. I know I don't have a son. That's why I'd be so raging. I'd be fucking stuck at the back with a bitter smile and an angry wave, and someone would have stolen my spotlight.
Yeah, that's not really
a
thing.
Be,
But I was going to say, that's not really a thing in any other game show that I've seen around the world, where people they let their family members play for them, just because Irish people are so uncomfortable with being on camera that given the opportunity to win like €500,000, they would go, no, I'd rather somebody else make every decision for me, and I'll just ruin a relationship with a close family friend if it goes wrong. I don't know if that's a great idea, but it stops you from making a fool of yourself on telly.
Well, I'm sure this is probably true for Carlo as well. I think in a lot of localities, there's someone whose nickname is Lotto because they won the lotto and subsequently fucked up generations of their family to come.
No, but to wrap up, that having been evicted from Killakee House, 17 years passed before the banks eventually sold the land, with the mansion being knocked and sold for scrap in 1941, because no one needed the decrepit old mansion. And another 17 years after that, in 1958, Massey passed away, having lived the rest of his life in the little gatehouse with his wife.
Oh, yeah. So they just knocked the house and he was just living on the land?
Yeah, so he actually probably could have stayed living in the house all those years, because they never actually did anything with it, which is pretty sad.
Sure. It's a weird one.
Actually, it's not that sad. Feck him.
I know, yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe an IRA lad tried to rob his house. Like, he maybe wasn't that bad. Who knows? It seemed like he just liked drinking.
He married a Catholic. He got her pregnant. He loved drinking. He'd taken on our culture, Jason. He was as Irish as any of them.
Lazy as shite, basically living on the dole.
There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
the only parallel I can think is that it's like going to a house party at an ex-girlfriend's house. Him living in this cottage, going back to a place where like you used to be king, and now you're just sleeping on the couch or under a table.
Wait, where do you sleep when you go to your girlfriend's house?
Is that not the place of pride?
Yeah, just underneath the table or over in the corner or next door when she's talking to some other fella. What's the...
Sometimes in the literal dog shed.
But yeah, that's Massey for you.
There you go.
And not one mention of tractors in the whole episode.
I genuinely thought that's where it was going to come in, the Massey Ferguson story.
No, nothing.
No relation.
No. What do you make about Michael Collins being a bitch and kneeling to the English crown?
Not unprecedented.
It seems fair enough to me. You're like, you got to give a little to get a lot.
I know. Well, see, that's what Michael Collins seems to be all about. The give a little to get a lot, and about 50% of the country thought, "Nah, fuck that. Give nothing. Get even more.
Get even more than what we're asking
than
for."
that."
Yeah, it's like, even if they give us what we want, then just walk away from the table and say, if you're going to be that weak, we want way more.
We've finally won a unified Ireland for all. That will mean you need to take care of the Protestant gentry and the former Unionists. This was not the deal we signed up for. You can go fuck yourself.
By say look after, do you mean burn all of their land and properties?
Oh, we'll take care of them, all right.
But yeah, so that's the story of Lord Hamon Massey and some of the Massey clan or family and the Killakee House.
Yeah, very good. Cool. That's another place we'll have to go visit on our Ireland tour.
If we're ever allowed outside again, Kevin. If we're ever allowed outside again.
If anyone is within a safe distance, please send us a photo. But cool.
Fair enough. I suppose that's it for this week then. We'll talk to you all next week.
Yeah, all right. Good luck.